I'm okay with a breeze. I'm not sure if I'm okay with all the background noise, but
it's a good day not to be on a bike. I'll tell you that.
All right, let's try some of your. You said it's Avoca.
Avoca Misty Valley, yes, Ethiopian. It's delicious.
Ooh, yes, it is. That's quite good.
Yeah. Adam Phillips has been trying to turn me into a coffee snob for years. He's like, man, you got great taste in beer and wine and cocktails and food. He goes, but your coffee is always shit. And I'm like, I don't know how this happens, but coffee to me is like any port in a storm. I'll drink any cup of coffee.
I'm pretty close to that. Now, make no mistake, I appreciate a good cup of coffee.
Same. But I'm not going to run down the rabbit hole. It's not something that's ever interested me enough to like run down the rabbit hole and go through, pour over. And I mean, I do have an AeroPress and a French press, but I mean, there's so many different techniques, and you can weigh your water, and you can temp your water, and you can adjust your pH, and you can do all these things. And, it's how you grind your coffee, how long it's been roasted. Like, one of the things I picked up from him is he's like, oh, dude, you're buying the stuff you're buying's been roasted way too long ago. He goes, all the oils just dissipate and stuff. So then one day I was super stoked. I bought some coffee that had been roasted like 4 days prior to me buying it. He goes, that's too fresh. I'm like, what's going on here? He goes, you got to let it sit for like 10 days after it gets roasted. I'm like, dude, I just can't win. I just couldn't get it right.
Let's roll.
Yeah.
And here we are, Chateau de Green. Another edition of Shiftless. The wind is a-blowing. It's a breezy day.
It is a breezy
So y'all
day.
are going to hear some background noise today, but just deal with it, because it's, it's better than 110 degrees in the stifling heat. I will take a little bit of air movement.
Yeah, and the air that's blowing is not that convection oven heat
no,
that
it's
you
not.
normally feel.
Yeah, what direction is the wind coming from?
Looks like it's coming from the south.
Okay, so it should be the convection oven, but it's not.
It
has been an odd wind pattern the last few
crazy.
days.
It's crazy. I rode North Shore last night. Not very well, but I rode it, and it was. I got overheated. It was too much.
Yeah,
too much. I was in the heat all week. Not all weekend, but a lot of the weekend. We went to see Post Malone on Saturday night, the long-awaited concert.
Yes.
Unbelievable. That guy's such a good performer.
Where, was that AAC or where was it?
I don't know what the kids call it nowadays. I call it Smirnoff.
Okay.
The Dos Equis Pavilion is what its current moniker. It was hot.
A little toasty, was it?
Yeah. I was pretty impressed, though. They made... I don't know, it's been forever since I've been there, but they allowed you to bring in 1 gallon of factory sealed water per person, and then you could bring in a clear container, like I think a Nalgene or something along those lines. Okay. So you could,
but the container had to be empty coming in.
Yes.
Okay.
So and they claimed they had a couple of hydration stations set up. I never saw them, but I didn't actively look for them either. And I bought an $8 fountain Gatorade, 32-ounce cup, and it was free refills.
That's a bargain at a venue like that.
I pounded. Like, normally when I go to something like that, I'm going to drink some beers and stuff. No. I drank water on water on water and on Gatorade. And then when the sun went down and the breeze rolled in, I did have one of their I don't know how much it was. It was a 24-ounce beer, and I think it was $19 or something. And I was like, I think I'm done. Actually, no, I had two, because what had happened was... my buddy was getting a round of beers, and I was like, hey, you get this round, and I'll get the next one. And because I knew I was probably going to have maybe 2 beers. Well, they're 24 ounces, so call it 4. And so the next time the guy came around, I go, I'll have one of... I can't remember what Stone was drinking, but I go, one of these and one of those. And he goes, okay, that's... $38. It's like, fuck. Y'all take plasma? It's crazy. But it's the price you pay.
Yeah, it is, literally. But good show, huh?
It was a great show. It was, I don't know if you're a fan of his music. I've been listening to him for a long time, and I enjoy his music, but I also just... There's a lot of, he's from Grapevine. He seems like such a good guy. I've listened to so many interviews with him and seen a lot of his stuff, and I respect him. He's very musically talented. I don't know if you ever saw the special he did where he played the guitar and Travis Barker played the drums, and they did a Nirvana homage for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It was all streamed. You're gonna end up. It's uneven on the edge. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
But unbelievable. Just great guitarist. Just good guy. And his live music is super good. And he put in a lot of, dare I say, like rock touches, which was cool. But anyways, and then on the way there, my youngest asked me, Dad, do you want to go to the Rangers game with me tomorrow? And I was like, sure, what's the occasion? He goes, nothing, I just want to go to the Rangers game with you. I was like, okay. How much are tickets? What am I in for? And he goes, oh, I'm buying tickets. And I go, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And he goes, nothing, I just want to take you to the Rangers game. And he goes, but you got concessions, right? And I go, sure. But it was cool. So we went to the Rangers game. It started at like 1:30, but it's indoors.
It's indoors now.
Yeah.
So I haven't made it there yet.
It was awesome. They hit 4 home runs. We won like 6-0. It was a great game to go to. And they have that parking situation, traffic in, traffic out. They have that so nailed, so dialed down. It's not the cluster that I remembered it from years ago when they were at the old park. What was the old park called? Why can't I think of it? Because this is Globe Life Field.
That's Globe Life Field.
Now the old field's called Choctaw. But I could not remember.
Oh, the old field's still there?
Yeah.
I thought they were going to tear it down.
I thought they were too, but I think they've repurposed it. I mean, it had concessions in it and everything because we walked right by it. It's right next door.
Sure.
But
I have not been that way since they opened the new one.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to go down there. So.
Yeah. That new field's freaking awesome. Awesome. But that was my weekend.
So how are the Rangers doing these days? I haven't figured out a way to keep up with them.
the Rangers are...
I hear they're doing pretty good.
I think they're in first place. They're pretty darn good. We're barely ahead of the Astros. Let me see. We're 68 to 46. We're almost 5.96 percentage wins. We're first place in the AL West, and only in third place overall for the AL. Okay. Baltimore and Tampa are ahead.
Okay.
And then the only other team in the entire league that's beaten us is Atlanta. So fourth place overall, essentially. So not bad. Not bad. They're making some good trades, and I don't know. It's just nice to see the Rangers do well.
And it's one of those. The last I heard, maybe last year, may have been 2 seasons ago. I'm pretty sure it was last year. Just everybody was convinced that, they were a multi-year project to even be competitive, and they come on strong this year.
Well, their pitching had to be dealt with, but enough about baseball. Let's talk about bicycles.
Let's talk bicycles. I agree.
Tell me what happened at Midnight Massacre. I did not make it. I heard it was toasty.
Midnight Massacre, toasty is a generous term.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was in the same heat that night.
It was hot as balls out there.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But oh my God, the crew that showed up for that was absolutely amazing. Our 77-mile leaders, 21-mile-an-hour average.
That just boggles my mind.
Starting to, temperature at start was like 106 degrees.
Yeah.
I don't think it got below 95 degrees. And it was over 20 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
Saturday. It was ridiculous. And, I mean, how they pulled that off, I don't know. It would have been a very, very reasonable evening for people just to be bitching and moaning and complaining. And I mean, make no mistake about it, people were struggling. Not falling out struggling, but it was I was camping out at the water table. So I set up the first water table out of the back of the truck, hung out there, and pretty much had it timed. So when everyone came through there, I moved the truck up for the next water table. So I basically saw everybody come through that did the longer route. Well, I saw everybody that came through because everybody went through that first water table. And then anyone that did the longer routes, I saw them the second time by as well. And it wasn't, when I say people were struggling, it was...
And rightfully so.
Yeah. It wasn't they were falling out sort of thing. It was, this is hard. This sucks. But I'm having a good time. I'm going to push the hell through this thing. Yeah. It was really neat to see that from people. And then when
refound grit,
people definitely found their grit, and I'll touch on this in a minute. And I think this was a really big part of that. But what I wanted to get to first is went to Valley View, and I got back in time where most people were still in town, and it was the best vibe and hangoutness I've seen in a long time. Yeah. There, and quite frankly, it ended up being a smaller crowd than we would have expected, and I'm certain the heat was a huge factor in that.
Absolutely.
But it was also one of those things. I wasn't going to twist anyone's arm. I was not going to say, come out and it's like, man, it's going to be 106 degrees, 105 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk people into this that don't want to be there.
Right.
And I mean, we had almost 300 people signed up for it. I knew we were going to have a lot of no-shows. I think we had about 100-ish no-shows.
Yeah, not surprising.
Not surprising at all. But what was really cool about it, and this is kind of a byproduct of the club's ministry route, we're going the membership-based stuff we're going. Of those 300 people that signed up, almost 200 of them were free club's ministry entries.
Yeah.
And that's an intentional byproduct of it from my perspective is from a promoter, I don't want people that are making themselves go there and, well, I spent $75, so I got to show up sort of thing. And they're really not physically ready for that or mentally ready for that. I'm not saying I want to give people a free pass just to, I'm not going to do it. But there's no added pressure. There's no added monetary pressure of it sort of thing.
I think some people need that, though. Some people, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I think some people go, they like to put stuff on their calendar and work towards that and know that that's coming up and that mental preparedness and, like, focus. I don't know.
I agree that people need to stretch their limits. I agree completely on that.
Yeah.
But in turn, I don't want people.
don't want people to already be resentful before they toe the line.
That's not. I don't want the monetary aspect to be a factor in that decision-making process. Does that make sense?
That does.
If somebody wants to reach out to me on a normal event, go, you know what? I don't know that I'm up for it. And we're not talking 106 degrees or flooding conditions or anything like that. There's a little bit of mud on the course. Find your way through it.
Yeah.
This is, it's not the end of the world. You need to learn how to do this stuff. Sort of thing, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you were, we had to reroute because of a bridge that was out. It turns into a 70-mile route instead of a 65-mile route. You were pushing it at 65. Go out there. Try and get that extra 5 miles.
Yeah, it's 5 miles.
Well, but, I mean, people draw these lines mentally.
Back to my coffee snob buddy, Adam. I've been on so many rides with him where we're like 50 miles in and we have like 18 miles to go. And Adam has this funny little, he'll just go, you've ridden your bike 18 miles before. Let's go. He's just like, if you just take it that way where it's like, once you're 40 miles in, you go, I only have to ride 20 miles. I've ridden 20 miles.
Chunking it down, that's, I mean, for me, that's, if you're looking at a 120-mile day as a 120-mile day, that you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball to begin with there.
I never think about it like that. When I set out to ride my bike and I'm trying to crush big distances, I just get going, and just the whole purpose is to keep moving. In fact, that's one of the reasons I got away years ago. I used to run heart rate monitor, speed, total mileage, all that stuff, all on my heads-up display, and I would just sit there, and the numbers just make everything way too real. And some people deal well. Some people want all those metrics. Some people like all those measurables. But to me, it just bogs me down. Like, I would be riding and my heart rate would get to a certain point and I'd be like, oh, I need to back off. Or I look down and I'm like, damn, I've only ridden 15 miles, and I still got 45 miles to go. Those kind of things just started to break into me. So I ditched my computer for years and just rode, and that's part of, the only problem was showing up to like Spinistry events and stuff. And I'd be like, well, I'm just going to ride with this person, because part of not having a computer was also not navigating. But that's also where a lot of my adventure riding began, is because I just go ride,
Sure.
I got to where, for me personally, the metrics were interfering with my fun factor of riding. I was too far in my head, and now I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I could give a shit less. I mean, I could look down at my computer and still have 60 miles of ride and only been 10 miles into a ride, and I'm fine. But it was just and I'm don't get me wrong, I was never competitive. Like, I was never the guy that showed up and everybody was like, oh shit, Brad's here. But in my mind,
we did, but that was
But
didn't have anything to do about competitiveness.
No, but in my mind, I was there to at least beat people.
Sure.
I wasn't going to win. But now I just want to ride my bike.
No, I get it, but I think ultimately it's still kind of the same thing, though. Over time, over miles, over the years, you expanded your comfort zone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The balloon just kept getting bigger. And that's what the progression is. It's, well, you think your limit's here, but let's put a couple more puffs in it. Oh, hey, it made it to here.
Yeah. Well, my balloon really got big in a hurry. Mr. Ben Thornton took me on a ride, and I can't even remember how long ago it was. It must have been at least 15, 18 years ago. Wait, I do remember. It was 06. So it would have been 17 years ago. He told me, he goes, pack. This is before bike packing was ever even on my radar. He's like, pack your bike and make sure you have enough stuff to spend the night and to go 200 miles. I was like, well, I don't know if I can do that. That's what I'm thinking.
Sure.
So all I had at the time was a wing nut, and I put 2 bladders in it, and I had like change of clothes and food and snacks, and I mean all this shit. My bag probably weighed 50 pounds. So I show up at Thornton's house because, you know, this is before I understood the whole mantra of you pack for your insecurities, for your fears,
right,
you know?
Right.
And so I get to Thornton's and he picks up my bag and he's like, no, you're going to die, you know? And so he just starts pulling stuff out. He's like, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this. And I'm like, he just took all my safety nets out, you know? So my bike, I was riding a Niner at the time with Jones bars, and I guess it was like a thumb shifter. And for whatever reason, I just remember I had I normally ran as a single speed. I set it up as a geared bike. It was only a 9-speed cluster at the time, but for whatever reason, I had to take out my 2 easiest cogs, had to adjust those out so my chain didn't rub on my tire. And so I had a 7-speed. We rode from South Dallas, right around where OCNP is, down to Lake Whitney and back in the same day. And we stopped at 100 miles in, and I go, hey, Thornton, would you take my picture? And he's like, what? We're not even halfway done. And I go, it's the first time I've ever ridden a Century. And he's like, what? We got another 100 miles to ride. So it was a trip. I mean, but we ended up, we did not quite get 200, but we came back. We made it all the way back. We went down to Lake Whitney, ate at the Subway, and turned around and came back. We ended up with like 187 miles or something that day. And I was ready to be done, but we did that in like 11 and a half hours or something. It wasn't that bad. That was total ride time.
Oh, okay.
Total ride time.
Okay.
But I remember we're coming up, you know, where Dallas Baptist University is. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in that area, there's this gigantic hill, or at least it seemed like it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I remember being able to stand up out of the saddle and just pedal. And I was like, that was at like mile 170 or something, you know? And I was like, this is not so bad, you know? So that was my first foray into like big, long route.
Ultra endurance.
Yeah. I mean, it was before I even, like I said, that was my first Century ever. And I did it on a mountain bike with 7 speeds. So, and I'm sure I was running, back then I think I was running probably Nano Raptors or something like that. Or small block 8s even.
Yeah, good chance of that. Uh-huh. So at that time, and I know that we're going into the Wayback Machine, mm-hmm. How much were you riding each week leading up to that, if that was your first, not just Century, but almost double Century?
Oh, I think back then I was probably getting 8 to 10 hours easy.
Okay. How many rides a week would get you that? Is that a 2 or 3 or 4?
I was riding at least 3 days a week. I was a lot more adamant about riding like on a regular basis back then. And the only reason I know that was 2007 is because in 2006, I went and did ORAM, Off-Road Assault on Mount Mitchell. And I was running a roll-off at the time. And it took me, so this is a 63-mile mountain bike race, very similar to Watchdog Challenge for those that know, but literally twice the elevation. It was 11,000 feet in 63 miles. And it took me 10 hours to finish it. And I was
I listened to this podcast one time about people talking about elevations.
Yeah. This was real elevation. There's a climb that happens at like mile 35 or something called the Curtis Creek Climb. And I may be misquoting, but from my understanding, it's about a 7-mile climb. And none of it's steep. It's like a movie theater incline, almost. But it's an unrelenting climb. And it's one of those that has so many false flats because you're just winding around a mountain. And so every time you look up, you're like, oh, there's the summit. And you get up there and it just keeps going. And it's so disheartening. But I remember after finishing in 2006, I did a little self-reflection and thought, well, I was very disappointed in my 10-hour finish time. Very disappointed. But I also, thinking back, knew that I spent way too much time at each aid station.
Yeah.
And my moving speed just wasn't that great. My fitness wasn't that great. So Thornton and I were adamant riding partners, and he goes, we're going to change that, and we're going to get you ready and send you back, and you're going to do way better. And so that was the year. I mean, I really did train between 06 and 07 to go back and do ORAM. And that was my pinnacle of my racing career when I won the DFW single speed series, because there only ended up being one race, and I won it. The other ones got rained out or canceled or whatever, so I ended up winning the series, even though it was only one race. Great race.
Which trail was that?
Cedar Hill.
Okay.
And my other claim to fame.
Not an easy single speed trail.
No. And I ended up out sprinting Barry Bishop, which is one of those legendary things that always lives on in my mind. You know, I was riding Chris Ferguson's wheel for a while, and I just realized there was somebody had went off the front. I go, Fergie, they're just getting away. We got to go. And he's like, bro, this is all I got. And I was like, well, then get out the way. And he just pulls over because he knew I was pushing, you know.
Right.
And so I rode strong, and it was actually Philip Delfield that was in front. And I kept seeing these whispers in front of me, like limbs moving and stuff. So I'm just trying to get him in sight so I can reel him in. So I'm riding spirited the whole time trying to do this. And when we get, I can't remember how far we were from the finish line, but I realized Delfield's not even on course anymore. He had quit. And so I may have let up a little bit, but it's an open finish. You know, you come out of the trees and you've got, 200, 300 yards before the finish line. And I thought I'm there solo. And I look back and Bishop is drafting me. And I was like, oh, you're not going to, I did all this work. You're not going to win at the last second. So I just stood up and out sprinted him. And I was super happy because he's always been a strong rider. So that was my main claim to fame. But all that to be said, so in the midst of all that training and going out and doing lots of long rides, getting a lot of base miles, and still doing some tempo work and intervals and stuff, I went back to ORAM and did it single speed, because that was the other thing, as I realized through the roll-off, I was able to sit in way too easy of a gear and be off for a lot of the race. So I went back the next year, did it single speed. Still probably pretty tall gear for me for that area. But I finished, I want to say like 8:05 or something. So shaved 2 hours off my time. And I was super happy with that. I mean, still I wasn't even competitive, but
sure.
It was still a huge thing for me. Those guys that live up there, like Rich Dillon and stuff, I mean, I don't know what the course record for that thing is, but it's pretty ludicrous. And there's points in the race. There's parts where it's mandatory hike a bike. There's no way anybody's riding it. And when you get to those points, if you're behind people, it's just this train of jerseys that just disappear up the mountain. And it's so disheartening because you just go, I'm going to be trudging this for 30 minutes, you know. It's pretty wild. It's beautiful country up there, though. Beautiful. I think the whole thing is almost in Pisgah National Forest. But pretty, but brutal. But there are some sections that resemble the Womble where you have kind of those ridge runner trails and stuff. But they have, different than the Womble. Well, I guess the Womble has too. They have a lot of roots that shoot out across the trail. And with all the moisture they have there and the, I guess springs and stuff that run across the trail, if you're running down one of those ridges and you hit your brakes, you hit one of those roots that just wants to eject you off the side of the trail. A little sketchy, but good riding. Real good riding. So, I don't know how we got onto that. Oh, long distance.
Long distance.
That was the reason that I was doing those big long rides. That was kind of what started all that. And that's what got me interested. Just that thought process of Thornton saying, throw everything you need in your bag to sleep. Because our initial plan was to like ride 100 miles and sleep and then turn around and ride back. And that was just that thought process. There was something, like going on your first backpacking trip. There's that. To me, the excitement is packing stuff that you're going to use when you get there. And then actually putting it to work. Like whether it's your stove or whatever, or your sleep system, and then when you've done it right, you set up all your stuff and, everything works the way you want, which doesn't happen all the time. It's a very gratifying feeling because that planning process and the execution and the actual, utilization, it's gratifying is the best way I can think of it. But that initial thought process was what got me on that bug of bike packing. And that was, if I had to think about the root of everything, for me, that was it. And it wasn't long after that, maybe 2 or 3 years after that I started accumulating bike packing bags and getting to where I was like, I want to start doing this, And literally, when I think about riding nowadays, that's the main thing I want to do is throw stuff on my bike, go somewhere and camp and wake up and do it again. Those are my favorite kind of rides. And that's the reason I ride on my other stuff is so that doesn't suck so bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I tell people all the time. And it's the motivation to train isn't to be faster. It's to when the opportunity to go on an adventure pops up.
Yeah.
That's not something that takes you out of the trip.
Right.
You always want to be trained up enough to do whatever you want whenever you want, sort of thing. And if that, I mean, you can do that on 2 or 3 rides on your home trail a week, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Two rides a week on your home trail and a couple hours of Zwift or whatever else. You just do something every week.
I think the most important thing for getting ready for a bikepacking trip is to stack miles. Like, make sure, if you're only going to get 2 rides a week, or say you're going to get 3 rides a week, is to ride 2 days back to back. And it doesn't matter if it's only 15, 20 miles. Just ride 2 days back to back. And then on your other third day that's not in succession, then you put in some miles.
Yeah, that's your long day.
But, or if you can only schedule out 45 minutes a day and just ride your bike for 45 minutes a day. Just try to do 5 to 6 days of just keeping your legs moving.
Yep.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is just getting on your bike when you don't want to get on your bike.
That's the biggest training thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you can just teach yourself, even just to, I just don't feel like riding today, but you just put on your shoes, put on your helmet, and get in 30 minutes. That's a win right there. And the reality is you get 15 minutes into that ride, it's like, I'm going to ride for an hour and a half.
I'm going to misquote it, but David Goggins says something about something to the effect of, the hardest thing I have to do is put my shoes on. And he goes, once I have my shoes on, I know I've already won.
Yep.
And he's like, sometimes I might look at my shoes for 30 minutes. I don't want to put them on. He's talking about running,
No, I get it.
I just love how just aggressively motivated he is. He's a trip. But it's the same in cycling. Like, and a lot of times, like, I know when I wake up in the morning I'm not going to want to ride. But one of the things I've done to help appease those demons is I get all of my stuff ready the night before. I lay out what I'm going to wear, my socks, my shoes. I find my water bottles. I check my bike. That way I have limited number of obstacles in the morning. And because I'm not a morning person. And so if I have to wake up and find my clothes and find my bottles and fill my bottles and put my tailwind in it and then I get out to my bike and it's not shifting right or whatever.
You got a flat tire.
Yeah. I'm like, it's so easy to go, nah. But I've found that I have a lot more success rate if I go through all of my stuff the night before, which, I mean, any diligent rider should do anyways. I mean, I noticed there was back to Judgment Day. I like how I saw a couple of threads were like, if you're waiting until the day of Judgment Day or the day before Judgment Day to service your bike, you're doing it wrong. If you're not already adding stands and checking your cleats on your shoes and stuff like that. I love that people were kind of giving that friendly reminder, because a lot of people, they do the stuff, they do the training, they adhere to their nutrition and their hydration and all this stuff, but they neglect to maintain their bike. And when they're being clumsy with their bike and throwing it on and off the car and abusing it over 70 miles and throwing it down because they're exhausted and stuff, that stuff takes a toll.
Sure.
And the crappy thing is, especially with as good the weather as the weather was this year, the last thing you want is for you to be feeling good nutritionally, hydration, fitness, everything, and you have a mechanical take you out, lose a cleat or something like that, which I've been guilty of. But I think a lot of people, and let's face it, a lot of cyclists are not mechanics, But I think as a whole, I think we're getting a little bit better, cycling community-wise.
Maybe.
Although we have a lot of newcomers that, just ride.
Well, I mean, I'm still of the mindset that it's so difficult to keep up with the technology these days that, I would have no idea how to work on an electronic derailleur shifter or anything like that.
Yeah, you don't work on those.
No, well, that's my point. So we're getting to the point where I would think actually the mechanical inclination is probably getting further away for a lot of people. But that's just a guess on my part.
Yeah, the learning curve is definitely different now. I mean, especially when you get into hydraulic brakes and electronic shifting, and then don't even mention internal cable routing.
I mean, we're getting to a similar point, of the 21st century vehicles. Yeah, how many modern day cars can people actually work on anymore? Where,
I work on all my own vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are the exception.
Well, I mean, I have quite a few friends that.
Did you check the fuse?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll never forget that. So I mean, it was a well-earned lesson, and well worth the ribbing. And honestly, that wasn't the only time, but I don't know if it was the first time, because there was another time that when I had that 62 bug, I was having issues with. I can't even remember what the issues were, and I called Cope, and say what you want about Cope, he's just a freaking saint. He shows up and he starts listening to what I'm talking about, and he gets this just amused look on his face like he does, and he goes, "Check the fuses?" And I said, "Well, of course." And the bug only has a fuse panel like this. I think it literally only had 8 fuses, and they're the old school bus fuses.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there was a fuse box.
Okay.
And so I don't know if that's where it ingrained. That may have been the second time. The trailer may have been the first time. The trailer
was first, yeah.
And I think you were right. I think that ended up being a bulb.
That was a bulb.
But either way, that lesson was hard fought, but well earned, and I will never forget it. So, and that's kind of my growing mantra and the running joke now too. Anytime I see somebody troubleshooting, I'm always like, "Did you check the fuses?" Even if it's something that doesn't have fuses,
I mean, it's applicable to everything that's out there. I mean, you start with the fundamentals.
Yes.
Oh,
always check the easy stuff.
What's that?
Plane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, always check the easy stuff. Cope pointed it out. He goes, "Dude, when you troubleshoot stuff, you try to address the most complicated stuff first, because you're doing it backwards. Check the easy stuff. He goes, a lot of times that's, and if you eliminate the easy stuff and you gradually ascend into the more difficult stuff, you generally find the problem before you get to something overly complicated. I was like, it's good knowledge.
There you go.
But that being said, you're talking about bike mechanics. I wouldn't even know how to begin working on an e-bike, Like, that gets complicated quick, too.
Sure.
There's a lot of interfaces and mechanical stuff that I don't even begin to understand.
You'd mentioned Goggins and the running and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think you messaged me on this because we talked about the Barkley Marathons a little while back.
Yeah.
And I watched the 2023 documentary. So it was good to be reminded of the format and the structure. And I mean, I remembered what made it generally the Barkley Marathon from a experience basis, sort of thing. But just the format from a promoter's, how it was good to be reminded of those details. And the one I really, really appreciated and I really, really liked was 40 people.
Yeah.
It's like, for stuff like that, for Spinistry Paloozas, it's like,
there is a magic number.
That's pretty close to it.
Yeah.
That's pretty close to it.
Well, his whole deal, and I remember this was your mantra in the beginning, whether you said it out loud to many people or maybe just in small crowds, was you wanted to put together routes where you would only have a handful of finishers.
Yes.
And that's his goal, and I think he said it in the original documentary that I watched that was probably in the 2015,
somewhere
or something around there, where he said that he caps it. I think back then it may have been 30 or 35. I don't think it was 40. But he said that his whole goal was to design a course that only one person would finish or nobody.
Yes.
He thought that if he put together a course where he had 7 or 8 finishers, that it would have been a failure. And so I totally get that mindset. Now, the people that bitched about the mud at Unbound would be of the opposite mindset.
Yep.
But I think that events like that, for people that enjoy that true Type 2 fun, or maybe that's even Type 3 fun, they want that test. They want to throw their hat in the ring to be the one person that finishes something like that.
Yeah, I mean, what this one said over the years he's only had 15 finishers, right?
Something like that, yeah. And then I watched yet another documentary that was shot by someone that was there supporting a runner.
I saw that. I turned that one on last night, and I couldn't get into that one, though. The Irish guy or whatever? Yeah, because
it quickly became focused on the runners themselves instead of the guy that he was there support, or she was there, I can't remember, was there supporting. But I do remember the guy finished, the one finisher, and I think there was only no, not true, there was a couple of finishers. This year. But the one guy finished in like 59 hours and 33 minutes or something like that. And 60 hours is the cutoff.
Yeah, I think it was even closer than that. I think he only had like 6 minutes to go or something like that.
But the guy immediately just after, because this guy came in and was near collapse, or maybe he was being dramatic at the finish, took off his pack and just laid down, and the promoter, I can never remember his name, fires up a cigarette. He's just so casual, and he goes, "Congratulations, you're the slowest finisher ever." I just thought it was so, that's just his personality,
right.
you know? He's like, "You've done a great thing, now let me dismantle you immediately."
There's, yes. I relate to that guy fairly well.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
So, it was a good reminder.
Yeah.
Yes, very much like you said, that back in the day, back in the roots of all this, like, well, going back to Norton, I mean, he busted my balls about our first Sansom 66 because it was like nobody finished. We had no winner.
Yeah, but in Kevin's mind, that's a success.
It's like
right.
And then the next year, we had like 6 people finish the thing.
There you go. Well, I mean, I think unless nobody's going to go out and do 66 miles of Sansom on their own,
right,
to prove that they can do it, and then without attempting it, you don't know what you're up against. So, yeah, you could go out and you could, do century after century on the road and get fitness and get time in the saddle and stuff. But, there's inevitably hike a bike and stuff, and people don't get ready for stuff like that. Nobody, stretches their calves and does all this pushing and stuff like that. So I think the first year that you do something like that, nobody knows what they're up against. Yeah. They think they are. They think they're mentally prepared. But then, you've got all the variables. Once again, mechanicals, hydration, nutrition. People don't know how to train for that. And then once they do, then they're like, okay, I know what I did wrong. Like when we were talking to Nipper about Tour Divide. He did all the homework, and he said the first day it goes out the window. And he said, once you finish, you go, I could have done this, I could have done this, I could have done this. And granted, that's a much, much longer format, but it's similar. And it just makes sense that you would have 6 finishers the next year and 0 the first year.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Is ultimately what that all boils down to.
My boy Shannon Wyatt won that year, too. I do remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was there.
So, yeah, my refreshing on the Barkley stuff, and again, the going towards the membership model on the spin, it gives me the flexibility to throw more stuff like that in the mix. And and so I'm playing with some. Well, I don't have any concrete idea. I'm playing with the concept of I want to do something back along those lines. That
let's put together something epic.
Okay.
Local, epic.
Definitely local to DFW.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the trick. How do we do epic here?
I've got an idea.
I'm all ears.
Yeah.
You don't want to share it yet?
Well, I'd like to talk to you off record.
Okay.
But my idea is, and I've been passively working on it for years, but and it wouldn't align with Kevin's moral compass. But what I want to do, But what
moral's not the right word there. Moral's not the right. If you take that, assuming we're going in the vein of
liability,
trespassing, or something along those lines.
Did you just call it trespassing?
If that's the way my lisp worked, so be it.
No, what I'd like to see is like 100-mile loop around, like the one I've been puzzling and trying to figure out, and I think it's closer to fruition than it's ever been, because Denton's done a lot of good stuff in the past, call it couple of years. But I'd love to see like 100-mile loop around the Denton area, with trail, like a ramble.
No, I'm already doing that.
Yeah,
I'm already doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Talk to our friends up that way.
The slow camps.
Yeah. So we got something in the works.
Awesome.
We got something in the works. So does it in that realm?
Mm-hmm.
In that realm, that qualifies for epic in your world.
Yeah, but it doesn't really align with the thought process of having a very high attrition rate. Granted, you would. So if you're looking for that, then we need to put together something else.
Okay. Or do we just make the cutoff time that aggressive where only so many people? See, I'm not a fan of speed per se, but I do think a cutoff time has to be involved.
For Rajkani?
I was just about to say. I was in Valley View until 3:00 in the morning
mm-hmm.
for Peter.
But did he finish?
He did finish.
Was he an official finisher?
He was an official finisher because I stayed there. But
Yeah.
to put a qualifier on this, Peter, I love you, man, but good God, show up on time, all right?
Oh, did he start late?
He did.
Oh. Maybe that's part of the issue.
Well, as I was leading the group out of town, he was pedaling up from the parking area into town to pick up his number. So maybe he started 5 minutes behind.
Oh, okay.
But he finished 2 hours behind.
77 miles?
Yeah.
And what time did y'all start?
7 o'clock. It was
8 hours for 77 miles?
That's what I'm saying. Well, it was hot, man. And the heat was getting to people, and the heat was definitely getting to Peter.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And that's fair. I mean, but I think... but
again, I think a cutoff time, that the way you're going, 77 miles? 8 hours? Yes, a cutoff time has to be involved somehow or another.
But I think there also needs to be, in the spirit, and not that you want to rip directly off of Barkley marathons, but...
No, I don't want to.
No, but I'm saying part of what leads to the attrition rate there is the route finding aspect. You know, and I think that needs to be part of it too. Like if everything, and hear me out real quick.
No, I think we're on the same page actually.
If everything has spinistry arrows and water tables and stuff like that, then there's a lot more outside support, if you will. I think it needs to be a lot more self-sufficient as far as route finding, supplies, that kind of stuff, instead of... So I think the people that you want to encourage to do events like this are more self-sufficient and are going to study a route, period.
Or want to learn how to be more self-sufficient. That's
that too. But the benefit of being in an area like when you're circumnavigating Denton County, so to speak, you know, is you can bail at any point and you're not far from civilization.
Right.
That's the you know, whereas the Barkley marathons, those people bail and they're still in the middle of freaking nowhere, you know, and they still have to make it back to camp. And they're literally in the middle of nowhere. But I think, you know, partly route finding and figuring out your own resupplies, how to stock, you know, what bike to ride, you know, because if it's a multi-surface event, you know, I mean, that's the thought process behind something like Rudolph's Revenge. You know, people are always contemplating what tire to run, what bike to run, that kind of stuff. You know, are you going to be fast on the green belt and slow on the trail? Or are you going to be fast on the trail and slow on the green belt? You know, and I love that McAfee put in the horse trails. I've been yelling for that for years. I think it's a great, great thing. I know people hate it, and that's one of the reasons I love it so much. You know, call me a sadist, but I think that separates because there's people that are going to burn people up on the green belt, and they're going to struggle on the trail. And the horse trail is the real equalizer in that whole scenario, mentally and physically. It kind of levels the playing field before you even get to the trail. That's my opinion.
I don't disagree. We're on the same page there. I was about to go a direction I don't need to go.
Oh, let's do it. Come on. We only have like 12 listeners anyway.
So there is that, and this might get rid of 3 or 4 of them.
That's fine. I love it.
I mean, we've touched on it before, and I don't know what the differences are. But and I'm not saying it's a better than or not as good as, it's just different. For whatever reasons, the North Texas cycling community is more
hardy.
Not everyone, but
no, there's definitely not.
There's more people that are interested in these types of adventures, I guess, and that would get into it. You start getting around the Austin area, the Houston area. There's very, very few people that seem to be interested in more adventurous and more self-sufficient and more finding your own way type stuff for whatever reasons. Or maybe maybe it's just none of those hardy people down there are attracted to organized events of any kind, so maybe I just never come across them.
I think that's part of it, but I think that's a big part of it because I think.
But I don't see them discussions. I don't see discussions along those lines.
But look at Enchilada Buffet.
Is it still there? I thought it was gone.
I think it's still a thing. Hopefully, it's still a thing. Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
I haven't heard anything about it for a while.
It may have stopped with COVID. I don't know. But then you've got like Shannon and Bragg. They're putting together. Well, they're not the lone orchestrators, but they're putting together a big route through Sam Houston National Forest, I think, and connecting it to Davy Crockett that's going to go on this fall called the Sammy Poo. And I don't know the entire logistics for that, but it's like 100+ miles. And it's going to be, I don't know if they're going to have course markings and stuff. It's going to be an adventure route. And if I can fit it in my schedule, I'm planning on going and checking that out. Sam Houston National Forest is a lot of fun to ride in. It's a nature preserve. You know, it's pretty awesome to get off the grid and still be that close to the grid. So, love the cicadas.
Must mean the wind died down.
Yeah. But, the other night, I can't remember what night it was. We were treated with a beautiful sunset, and it was relatively cool. And Paula and I went and sat in the driveway like we do on the evenings sometimes, and we're just watching the sunset. And the cicadas were just firing on all cylinders, and it was awe-inspiring because it was like it wasn't just one drone; it was like these packs and it would be like one would fire off and then another one would key in and this one would die off and another one would key in. It was like this whole harmony thing going on, and it lasted for 20, 30 minutes. It was so awesome. To each other. It was impressive. But I still want to understand more about cicadas. Like how long, because I see them dead on the ground constantly around here.
Sure.
And so they're still droning on, so I don't know what the lifespan of a cicada is. I can't imagine it's more than 15 days or something. But once again, I don't know. So that leads to the question, I don't know how long they emerge for. Like, are they just constantly coming out of the ground for 4 to 5 weeks, and they're just on this whole cycle? I don't know. The things I don't know about cicadas.
In my world... it's like lightning bugs. When I was a kid, and I mean, every year there were cicadas everywhere. We called them locusts at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like there were June bugs everywhere and fireflies everywhere, horned toads everywhere.
They're coming back.
Those are coming back.
Yeah.
There was something else but all this stuff that we never see any of it anymore. But then when I was a kid, there was no talk of cicadas emerging or 7 years this or whatever. They were just there every year, and they were everywhere.
And where was this? Missouri?
Here.
Oh, Texas.
Missouri and Texas.
Did you say Missouri?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
You've never heard it pronounced that way?
I have, but I didn't know if that was a mispronunciation or if that was a localization.
Localization would be appropriate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember cicadas too in Louisiana, but my long-term memory is not impressive as far as remembering continuous years of locusts or cicadas.
When I was a kid, I seem to maybe I'm misremembering, but they were part of every summer.
But I remember lightning bugs being sporadic. I do remember that. And when we first moved in here, there was a year or two, not back to back, where my side yard, we'd sit out there and watch the sunset, like I mentioned, and there would be hundreds of lightning bugs across that field. Now I don't see them as often.
And I just thought of something, because another previous episode we had chatted about back in the day the heat of this summer, and it's like when I was a kid and lived in Arlington, I didn't remember 100-degree days.
Mm-hmm.
One of the local weather guys posted the historic 100-degree days per summer chart, and I looked, and sure enough, that little window when I was living in Arlington, it was a big swoop down, and then the year I left Arlington, it was like the highest number of 100-degree days. So what I was remembering was actually
accurate. Yeah,
it was accurate what I was remembering, but it was also that particular stretch was outside the norm.
Yeah.
So that paints the picture of perspective.
Yeah, but in the same,
because if you go back to 1929, I think that's when it started. All these 100-degree days, and then 1972 it drops off, and 1980 it went back up.
Yeah, it's cyclical. I mean, but
I wouldn't call it cyclical, but
it comes in waves, just like you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, it was abnormal. What I was remembering was well outside the norm for that.
Yeah.
It was just an odd coincidence.
Well, we are in a Super Nino year, apparently. Well, what? I was watching something about this the other day. I really shouldn't speak about stuff. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but the Atlantic and the Gulf are hotter than they've been in 6 years or something, which is going to potentially contribute to a ton of snowstorms this winter for whatever reason. They explained it.
Right.
And it's going to pull a lot more cold front down further south than we're used to. So even though we have these 110-degree days, we're still allegedly going to have a pretty harsh winter as well. So it seems almost counterintuitive, like if we have hot summers, you'd think we'd have a mild winter.
All right, so I don't dispute
it's all DARPA, anyways.
It's all bullshit. Now I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen, but a perfect example. You're touching on the hot Atlantic and the hot Gulf of Mexico and blah 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 blah. And I don't want this to sound like I'm a climate denier, because that's not where I'm going with this. But everybody's been talking about when we have the hot Gulf and the hot Atlantic, we're going to have the super hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the hottest Gulf Stream, hottest Atlantic that we've had in
Don't tempt Mama
decades.
Nature. Mama Nature going to slap you in the face. Don't tempt her.
Hey, I'm in Dallas now. I'm not in Florida anymore, okay?
Yeah, but you got people down there.
Well, okay, but that's on them,
I mean, that does beg a good question. Hurricanes are one of those things you hear about all the time, and I haven't heard about a hurricane since the last one hit Florida, and that's been, 9 months ago?
Yes, it's early. It's still early in the season. Labor Day is traditionally when the big one comes through, right around Labor Day. So there's definitely still time for that to happen. But we definitely have not had the active. It's been a less active hurricane season so far from everything that I've seen. That said, that can change on a dime. There's no doubt about that. But also, supposedly, the Saharan dust years are a factor in that. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
So,
I mean, I remember when we had the dust storm. All that dust came in. Was that 4 or 5 years ago?
That was a bad Saharan dust.
Yeah.
But this year was supposedly, and it's not as bad now here as it was like a month ago. But it is a Saharan dust year. So supposedly,
I thought that was the smoke from Canada.
But both were going on.
Oh.
At the same time.
It was a perfect storm,
so to speak. But supposedly, when the Saharan dust is thicker over the Atlantic, it holds down tropical storm development, sort of thing. So maybe it's we have the super warm Gulf and ocean waters, but the Saharan dust is offsetting it. I don't know. But I think it's all, there's so many pieces involved, and going back to if the Gulf Stream's warming up like this and the other one's warming up like that, then it's going to drag more Maybe it is. Maybe I don't think they all.
You know who could answer all of this for us?
David Frenfrock.
I was thinking of Don Booker, the venerable Don Booker. He is my go-to meteorologist. He is. You talk about someone that is a wealth of knowledge. You get him started on meteorology.
You get him started on anything.
That's a fair point. I love listening to that guy talk. Portillo's. Have you been to Portillo's yet?
What is Portillo's?
It's a Chicago-based, I want to call it fast food. But it is, if you haven't been, and judging by your question, I'm guessing you haven't, go. It is a production house. It is something to witness just take place. It's counter service.
Where is this place?
In that Nebraska Furniture Mart major area right there. Yeah. It's right almost in the parking lot of Shields, which I still haven't made it to. Apparently is the largest sporting goods retailer in the United States. Anyways, Portillo's is, I can only liken it to In-N-Out, if you will, from this aspect, where all the workers are clear and present, and you can see the entire assembly line take place.
Okay.
But it's counter service. There was a line out the door when we were there. They also have a drive-through, and it was very akin to In-N-Out, where they had people. First started up. Yeah, and then much like Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out, when they're ramped up, they have people outside running the drive-through. The dining room is immense. Probably, if I had to guess, 125, 150.
So far, everything
patrons.
You've said is exactly the type of stuff to drive me away.
I understand. But
so you need to go a different direction on this.
But I'm trying to give you a visual of what's going on. They're known for Chicago-style hot dogs.
Okay.
Which, the poppy seed bun... Yep. The sport peppers, the tomato slices, the pickle spears, the celery salt, that fluorescent green pickle relish. There's something else I'm missing. But they're known for that. Well, here's the other thing. The two locations, I think there's now 2 locations, and I think there's a third coming, but are the only locations that are not in Illinois. So it's truly authentic. They're also known for their Chicago-style beef sandwiches.
Okay.
A la
The Bear.
The Bear. So I've been to Weinberger's numerous times. We used to beat down the doors at Weinberger's. They used to have 3 locations. Now they're down to just the one there in Grapevine. Still a great place. Overwhelming with the amount of sandwiches they serve. I mean, they have 100 sandwiches on their menu. But I've had their Chicago beef because they're out of Chicago as well, Weinberger's. So I had a measuring stick, and I ordered a Chicago beef the same way. I get it wet, which means it's dipped. I get it hot, which means it has the giardiniera on there, and I like the cheese. So I did mozzarella cheese. I will go back. It was amazing. Okay. Perfect salt, perfect heat, perfect beefiness.
Now you're talking my language.
The bread chew was on point. There was no shortage of anything.
Quick sidebar.
Mm-hmm.
As a reminder to everyone, Brad and I are going to talk in depth on the Bear.
I know we keep postponing.
We do. It takes proper preparation and mindset for that episode. I do believe. But here's your last warning. If you haven't watched The Bear yet,
we are going to spoil the shit out of it.
We'll start out the conversation just talking about the premise, and then we'll say, "Hey, spoilers start now," and we're going to go whole hog on the spoilers. Watch both seasons of The Bear right now.
I don't understand why that show isn't on everybody's radar.
I think it. Well, I mean, everybody is relative.
Yeah.
But from a cultural awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's near the top. It's a big deal.
And I think as good as season 1 was, which, don't get me wrong, it was amazing. But season 1 made season 2 what it is.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. It's season 2, freaking phenomenal. It just validated the whole first season for me. I can't imagine a world where they don't win a handful of awards for that show.
I can't see anything.
Have you watched They Clone Tyrone yet?
No, I don't have Netflix. I told you that.
Damn it.
I can't see how anything that they might be nominated for the Bear, they don't win, quite frankly.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't know of another show that can even hold a candle to it offhand.
I mean, Ted Lasso has
Ted Lasso is
some,
super good.
It's they could give each other a run.
I still haven't finished the final season yet.
I saw something last night. Oh no, that's what it was. I was watching Cinema Wins talking about everything great about Ted Lasso.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm a Ted Lasso fan. I'll put that on. And like a half the way through the episode, he starts mirroring Ted Lasso, the bear. Ted Lasso, the bear. Ted
Interesting.
Lasso. It was
interesting.
So basically, they were going, yeah, these two shows, because they just talk about movies, and they're talking about Ted Lasso and the bear like they talk about movies, and how high quality those productions really are from a story standpoint.
Yeah.
So
and how well thought and well written.
Oh, it's nuts.
But the spirit's completely different in the two shows. They're both very binge worthy.
Where they were going with it was, it was everything great about Ted Lasso from the whole series perspective,
mm-hmm.
and for those that have watched all 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, it's amazing how this piece of episode 6, season 3 goes all the way back to episode 3 of season 1,
mm-hmm.
where they tie together.
Yeah.
Well, the bear does that too.
Oh man,
very much, and that was the point they were making. It's like, well, Ted Lasso does this, and the bear does too.
It's a mind F when you start putting together all the Easter eggs and all the inside jokes and all the tie-ins on the bear.
Yeah.
And then I haven't made that connection with Ted Lasso just yet. But then again, I've watched Ted Lasso so infrequently where it doesn't all tie together anyways. So
yeah, and that's a byproduct of our binge culture, because
mm-hmm.
you can't if you watch the stuff once a week,
yeah,
over the course of a year,
mm-hmm.
over the course of 3 years for 3 seasons,
well,
you can't keep. But when you binge,
but that's what's crazy is because that was the status quo 20 years ago.
Sure.
You waited for your show to come on Saturday night or whatever,
right. Right.
And so you didn't have this continuous capture of the show. But I would contest that we also weren't inundated with so much quality and non-quality content. I don't even know if that's the right word.
I think there's always been, it's always been, the majority is low quality content and the minority is the high quality content.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go into the 20 years ago frame though, keep in mind that, if you were watching Cheers or Friends or whatever else,
mm-hmm.
yes, there was storyline progression in.
Let's not forget Dallas.
There's actually a difference, and I was about to go there.
Yeah.
There was a progression of Sam and Diane.
Right.
Will they or won't they? Sam and Rebecca, will they or won't they?
Yeah.
But each episode didn't really specifically lead to the next episode. It was just beats in the overall arc of the characters over time.
And running jokes and stuff like that with Coach and all that, yeah.
Dallas
Norm,
and Dynasty and stuff like that were like your soap operas where this episode tied
Dallas was legitimately a nighttime soap opera,
yes,
right? Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah.
And I remember having this discussion with my mother years and years ago. Is like, it'd be really cool if all of the, if these shows like Hill Street Blues or whatever else would tie directly from episode to episode to episode. And she's like, oh, that'll never happen because,
people don't have the appetite for it. Well, they don't have the mindset for it.
Well, you didn't have the capability to, because if,
they would lose new watchers.
Right. If you come in the middle of a season to a new show and you don't know everything that led up to that, you're out of the loop. You have no idea what's going on. And in turn, if you miss a show, you haven't. Okay, they're going to rebroadcast it in 6 months, maybe as a rerun, maybe, sort of thing. So the streaming and instant access was really the flick of the switch on that, but it took people a little while to get trained on that.
Isn't that crazy when you think about that? You can literally watch anything you want at any time you want, and music is the same way. I was trying to explain that to my kids one day. They were much younger. We were driving in the car, and I was, first of all, try explaining a cassette tape to a child, and then make them understand the concept of, if you wanted to listen to a certain song, and I don't know why, but in those days, like the 7th song was generally like the hit that you bought the cassette for.
Because that was song 1, side 2.
Typical. Well, yeah, it depended, but and then before Singles came out, do you remember Singles? Where it was a cassette with just one song on it. It would have an A side and a B side. It was like a short format cassette.
Never did that.
But I was trying to explain to them, you would have to put in the cassette and just play it. And then when it gets to your song, you'd have to rewind it and just keep stopping and playing until you got to the point where the song started again. You couldn't just like push a button and the track started over immediately. And I said, now think about, you have 20 cassettes in your car, and then you're trying to figure out which one's which and which side it is and all this. And I go, you guys have no idea how spoiled you are when it comes to music. And I said, you can just go, hey, Siri, play, and what'd I say? La 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 or something like that. And Siri comes on over the radio and says, now playing blah, blah, blah by the So-So. And like, I didn't even realize that was a song.
Right.
And it just solidified my point so hard. But, and it turned out to be a good song, and we actually listened to it multiple times. But it was just, in that moment, I just realized like how far we've come in such a relatively short amount of time just for our ability to digest music. And then, same thing, TV content, in YouTube. And think about how crazy of a resource YouTube is.
Oh.
I
watch more YouTube than anything.
Yeah. I love, my wife can't stand YouTube. And
I get it.
It's interesting to me. But both of my boys and me, I could watch YouTube over just about anything else for hours.
Now that said,
it seems to be more engaging content for me.
The YouTube content seems to be shifting, and maybe it's just my perception, or maybe it's just the way the algorithm reads me.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to be as much depth just showing up on my feed anymore. It seems to be more.
Well, that's your shallow searches.
Well, but yeah. That's a totally different episode. We could go really, really deep on this. All right.
Like I see my YouTube always has like the same flavors. Like there's food, there's whiskey, there's climbing videos, there's cycling videos. Like it's a matter of how you engage with it, and that's a scary, although convenient factor.
I don't disagree. I think, what's the best way to put it? YouTube used to do a better job of feeding the more specialized, smaller channels that were more directly tied to what I was looking for. If I had a specific search, it would give me this video that's only had 3,000 views over 4 years.
Well, monetization has changed.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That, yeah.
No, it definitely has. So now what it will do is it will give me the GCN and the path less pedaled videos first that aren't directly tied to what I'm looking for.
Because that's in your algorithm, though. It's because you watch a lot of GCN videos.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
It's always feeding me the stuff I really don't want to see.
Huh. Okay.
So, but anyway, again, that's a whole episode.
I like path less pedaled, though.
Path less pedaled isn't bad. I don't want it to come across that I dislike it. I don't mean it that way, but it gets fed to me disproportionately. I guess is the best way to put it. It's
fair
when it's not truly applicable.
Yeah,
sort of thing. And it's nothing against them. What I'm talking about is YouTube's not feeding me the content the way it used to. It used to, if I had a specific search, it would give me 5 videos that were very tied specifically to that search, and that's all that came up.
Yeah.
Now those 5 videos are, you got to go through 2 or 3 pages to find those guys. It's going to give me all the popular ones first.
Yeah, I think their algorithm, the nature of an algorithm is it's constantly changing.
Very definitely.
But I think their parameters have changed.
It changes every day, quite frankly.
But I think the way that they structured their originating algorithm is structured differently now. And I think monetization changed that. Obviously, their ad campaigns and stuff, the way they do ads now has changed a lot too. Because you remember maybe 5 years ago, you couldn't skip ads on YouTube. You'd have to endure them, or you'd have to go down and fast forward and hope you get through them. Now you can just skip them. And the other thing I don't understand, because I never read it long enough, because the button's already highlighted, is they always want to make you take a survey. Or you can just click skip survey.
Right.
I don't even understand. Maybe if you took the survey, it would help with your algorithm better. I don't know. But I never even read it. I always just go skip survey. But I think that they're also the privacy laws and stuff have changed. But the way they present ads, I think, changed it as well. Because there's something in that 10-minute mark that is the beautiful thing as far as YouTube is concerned. Like, I think your video has to be over 10 minutes for them to consider it for monetization. No?
Over 10 minutes allows for 2 commercials. Less than 10 minutes is just the opening commercial.
Okay. And maybe that's what it is. But YouTube seems to really push videos that are 10 minutes and beyond.
But yeah, well, over 10 minutes, but less than 20.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the big difference. Back in the day, a lot of those content videos used to be some of the longer ones.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't feed those as much as they used to.
Yeah.
And because they do want people cycling through multiple videos as opposed to just camping out on one.
And that's the thing, is if you watch 3 10-minute videos, you get 6 commercials.
Right.
Versus watching one 30-minute.
Understand?
Yeah.
No, I don't dispute that.
And that's part of their agenda.
We're saying the same thing.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing with you. I'm arguing with you.
The quality of the content that I used to get from YouTube was better previously, for when I was doing searches and when I was researching things and the like. Now it's more it's not network television per se. I'm not wanting to pay. But it is more. Yeah, it is more the commercialized channels that are being forced on me when that's not what I was really looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyway, all right, we are. Are
we still going to Local Craft?
I don't know. Do you want to?
That was my plan. I've been looking forward to it since last week.
We can probably do that.
You dirty son of a gun.
What?
What, are we wrapping up?
We're wrapping.
All right. Well, bye.